Welcome to the Dream Journal.
Follow your dreams, attend to them, consort with them. They really do have some wisdom for you, and they really want to help us repair not only our imaginations, but our intuition. And without imagination, we can't believe, or we can't understand what's possible. We have to first imagine it.
Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you. A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means. Today's music is called Reflectronics. This week marks 7 years on the air with 350 official podcast episodes. Can you believe it? I don't know if I can. Welcome to the journey of the journal. We have a special guest today, druid and animist, my friend Laura Smith Riva. Laura will be speaking to us about rewilding the dream. And I am your host, Katherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork. Welcome to the Dream Journal. We'll be taking call-ins during the last 30 minutes of the show. You can also email us anytime at onair@ksqd.org. Okay. Let's get right to the guest today. Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome all the way from Italy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, Katherine. It's good to be with you again here on the Dream Journal. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, talking about this concept of rewilding the dreams and animism and dreamwork and how they fit so beautifully together. And yes, I am in Italy. I'm here in the beautiful area called Val d'Entro, which includes Bormio and Livigno, which is where the Olympics are happening. Part of the Olympics are happening, and excited to be able to be here. It's evening here, so I apologize for the darkness, slight darkness of my video. But yes, I'm excited to be here.
I understand you're a natural dreamwork practitioner and priestix of the Green Mountain Druid Order in Vermont. So let's go ahead and start with that. Yeah. What does that mean, a priestix? And tell me about the Druid Order.
Yes, I am a natural dreamwork practitioner, certified natural dreamwork practitioner. I'm part of a group of wonderful practitioners. We call ourselves natural dreamwork practitioners, and we're spread out all over the U.S. and internationally. I spend my time between Italy and Vermont.
Mm-hmm. We had Roger Kamenis on the show not that long ago, just a few weeks ago.
Yes, I just finished a wonderful class which he taught through the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, based on his new book, Seeing into the Life of Things, which you guys spoke about recently. And you mentioned the Druid priestix. So I am a graduate of the Green Mountain Druid School, which is based in Vermont, and I am a member of the Green Mountain Druid Order. And the concepts that are part of druidry include this idea of animism, which is very much aligned with the work that we do in natural dream work.
Mm-hmm. Right. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what is Druidism and how is it related to dream work?
So, well, I guess the Druids share this idea: if you want to learn about a tree, go visit a tree. In fact, one of our training modules included actually spending time with the tree and learning about the tree, sitting with the tree, and really coming to understand the tree. The tree that I worked with at the time was the Eastern Larch, also known as the tamarack. And it is one of the few trees which drop its pine needles like similar to deciduous trees. It drops its needles on an annual basis and grows a new set of needles. They're very soft, very delicate. The wood itself, it's one of the hardest of the softwood trees. And so I learned a lot about this tree and also incorporated some of the life of that tree into myself and my own understanding of myself, that sturdiness and also that softness that I learned about learned about from the tree.
And the letting go of the needles, and yet coming back into life. I love that.
And the transformational aspect of that and the connection to the seasons.
Right.
But I think, oh, go ahead.
One quick question, which is, so you're talking about having a relationship with a tree, and you're talking about larch, like the larch in general. Was there one particular tree or like a grove of trees that you had a particular relationship with to really experience the tree?
Yes, actually, there was, and sadly, I'm not connected to this particular piece of land at this time. But at the time, the property that I owned in Montpelier, Vermont, I had 5 eastern larch trees on that property, and there was one particular tree that I spent quite a bit of time with. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's all about relationship, isn't it?
It is. In fact, when we think about animism as sort of as a worldview, it's the understanding that nature is alive, aware, and relational. And so this idea of spirit being animate in all objects, not just what we consider the living beings like human beings and animals, but also in potentially in rocks, in the druids revere the stones, for example. And if you ever work with stones and enter into the sphere of a stone and really feel into the slowness of stone, it's quite an experience of slowing down. But the stones, the plants, the landscape, all become the waters, all become part of a living being that we have the capacity to interact with on a regular basis. So everything being alive and relationship being dominant over hierarchy, for example. In other words, relationship being more important than hierarchy, human beings, being the apex somehow, and feeling into reciprocity with nature.
Right, and I can start to see some of the parallels with Dreamwork here. Spending time with and getting to know and being in a relationship with. I wonder if you'd like to flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, so, well, in a natural Dreamwork session, for example, we would be working with the imagery of the dreams, whatever that imagery might be, the dream field being alive, and the things that come to us in our dreams being alive. My teacher, Roger, often uses the example of the lion. When the lion comes in the dream, it's not coming as a symbol of a lion. It's not coming as the idea of a lion. It's an actual lion that you're encountering. And everything that goes along with that. I have an interesting story from a client that I worked with who had a lion who came in her dream. And this lion walked up to her and raised himself up on his back hind legs and put his paws on her shoulders.
Wow.
Now, so she had this amazing encounter with this lion, but what makes it most interesting is when we slowed that work down and her instinct, what she wanted to do was use a technique which she had a name for, and honestly I can't remember exactly what the name was, but it was something like my escape hatch, we'll just call it, because that's kind of what it was. And she would literally be able to, in her dream, propel herself up into the air whenever there was danger or threat, and just elevate and kind of float away. And so this lion who put his paws on her shoulders, sort of bringing her back down to earth, holding her in a more grounded way, was sort of the antithesis to this idea of dissociative floating away. And so you talk about slowing down, being in relationship, feeling into the energy. The other thing we did with that dream was this technique that we often use in natural dream work, which is switching it out. What's it like to be the lion?
Mm.
So she felt the lion as this, and felt this as a very much an opening sensation in her own body, to open
Lifting up the
and to
front
be
paws like that.
upright
Yeah.
and feel your heart space opening and all of that opening. In another dream, she was on a park bench, crouched forward. So this gesture of the dream opening, sort of acting against the desire to crouch and hide the heart,
Right.
to open the heart,
Well, to protect the heart, because the heart's so
to
vulnerable.
protect the heart. That's right. And
we do.
there's a reason.
Yes, we've been wounded. So we've all
been
really been
wounded.
wounded one way or
Yeah.
another, one time or another. And so, of course, we want to protect that. And yet, then our heart is closed.
That's right.
And
That's
so,
right.
embodying that lion, lifting up the front paws and opening that heart area is
Vulnerable,
powerful.
but
Yeah.
also powerful when you are with it from the perspective of the lion. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. And I can just imagine that moment of being in the dream and having the lion with its paws. It's a male lion, big male, like, right? Is that right? That's what I'm imagining. I don't remember.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Just noticing the just the face, the lion's head right in my face. That's terrifying. I would want an escape hatch.
Of course. Exactly. And, when we slow the dream down and we kind of slow the moment down, and there's an opportunity to really feel into what is happening inside of our bodies, inside of our minds, and be able to take a moment to look into the eyes of that being, or to sense into that being. We can feel the aliveness of it. And this is a piece of this idea of this sacred encounter, or these interactions with beings that are not human, for example, where we recognize that there is intention, there's purpose, there's more, there's connection that's happening there. There's an aliveness that we in many ways are yearning for.
Well, yeah, but they're also afraid of, because of the times we've been hurt.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's that push and pull. Tension,
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a desire to protect ourselves, but also the desire for love and connection.
That's right.
Which is really archetypal, just that duality right there, that dyad.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this whole idea of Druidism, like just like historically, this is like from an ancient Northern European kind of a religion. Is that practice?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because, I studied with the Green Mountain Druid Order, and the lineage of that order comes through one particular figure and his wife. And he was from England. He spent a lot of time in India. His name was Ivan Macbeth. And so he carried with him the traditions that most resonated for him. But so a lot of people associate it with Ireland, or they associate it with the Celts.
Yeah.
And
like
and
Stonehenge, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But the Celts were all throughout Northern Europe. They were here in Italy. They were very prominent here in Italy. It's just that their final bastion, their last bastion, if you will, because of the Roman Empire's expansion, was the Northern Isles. And
so they were pushed out by the Romans long before Christianity, even.
And a lot of their customs and traditions and so forth were crushed by the Romans. So, like, for example, here in Italy, it's interesting. There's a fountain, hot spring nearby that I hike up to, and it's beautiful. There's no candles, no offerings. If you encountered that same spring in England, for example, there would be offerings. There would be offerings to the goddess Bridget, for example, who would be a goddess in the pantheon of the Celts that you might offer a prayer to, especially as it relates to the water or the fire. So it comes from this tradition, and because there was no written documents per se, so they didn't have like a testament, a way of writing down everything. Most of it was transmitted orally. So what we have today is a mixture of modern, I'd say modern understandings of these more pagan, animistic traditions. And animism, interestingly, it's throughout the indigenous world. I mean, we can think of it here in the Americas as associated with the first peoples of the Americas, but also Shinto in Japan, various African traditional religions, Aboriginal Australia. Australians, they also are an animistic culture, and certain Siberian and Arctic traditions also animistic in their belief system. So,
And just to reiterate, animism means the belief that everything is alive and everything is sacred. How would you define that?
I'd say yes. Everything is alive in some sense. That that relationship is emphasized over a hierarchical aspect. Like there's not this hierarchy isn't what's emphasized in nature. It's the relational aspect. That there's a personhood beyond just humans, and this is why in dreams we might, like, let's say there's a tree or a standing stone or a river that carries a deep feeling for us. We go to the river, we recognize that river, we feel something, we feel its purpose for us, maybe. To be in the flow of life or something like that, or the ocean. We are floating in the ocean and we feel how it's holding us. It has this sense of a personhood, I guess you could call it. And then there's this idea of reciprocity and respect, I would say. So asking permission, like if I'm going to make a tincture from an apple tree, I might ask the apple tree for permission before I start taking the flowers off the apple tree.
Okay.
Or maybe even offer something in return, like either lighting a candle or, an offering, a song or a prayer.
So the respect that you're talking about, like respect and reciprocity. Then I'm wondering now if this brings us to the idea of rituals and the importance of rituals and how to maybe establish our own rituals. Like, wonder if you'd like to talk some about that.
I mean, sure, there's lots and lots of rituals associated with druidry and with religion in general. Not that druidry is a religion, because it's really not, but so the idea of ritual is a way to bring something more fully alive for yourself, to bring it more deeply into your consciousness, is anything from lighting a candle to taking a moment to say a prayer or to bless the waters. Recently, Fern Lickfield, who was the chief of the Green Mountain Druid Order, she's resigned from that role at this point, but she did a blessing for the waters. And we imagine that blessing traveling from the waters of the Winooski River to Lake Champlain to the St. Lawrence, through the St. Lawrence Causeway to the Atlantic Ocean, and that prayer being carried throughout that system. So that's a ceremonial, ritualistic way of being in the world, really. We do it with Dreamwork. So, we might bring a moment from the dream out into the world. I've done this a lot through writing prose and poetry. In fact, I have a piece which I could read today if we want to take the time to do that, that I wrote about my encounter with a stag in a dream. So we might create an art piece, we might have an altar upon which we place an item which would remind us of whatever our work is in the moment, whatever the thing is that we're feeling most connected to.
Yeah, I do that around the dream work, is to have something that reminds me of the dream somewhere where I can see it, whether it's the color of the shirt I'm wearing or a little figurine that I put on the windowsill by my computer so I can see it. And I have these things like all over my house. My house is full of dream objects that way.
Yeah, and these objects become imbued with,
Hmm.
we can even say that objects can have a life in them when they become that important to us.
Hmm.
They become, um, they take on a personhood, and this is why certain objects become so revered and become sacred.
Because of the reverence with which we treat them, we were mentioning Stonehenge,
Yes, and
like
this,
those are, it's been generations, thousands of years,
yeah,
people have really honored these things.
yeah. And
Hmm.
if you've ever seen the stones, there's a big stone circle in Vermont at the Dreamland Sanctuary. And if in ceremony, and I've priestixed ceremonies there, and I've also been in the role that's called watcher, which is a role that is outside of the temple, outside of the stone circle, and in the dark, that is watching energetically over the ceremony. And if you've ever witnessed the stones from the vantage point of being outside of that circle at night, they look like beings that are
Mm.
moving. I mean, it becomes very magical and quite powerful, really, to see those stones, and you can understand why they were so revered,
Okay.
especially in ceremony.
Right, right. So there's like something about looking at waking life experiences and waking life objects, even dreamlike, finding meaningfulness in even inanimate objects. Like you talked about the quality of stone, the flowingness of
Hmm.
water, and how we can just take objects and imbue them with meaning. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
the
Yeah.
meaning, they almost imbue meaning into us,
Okay.
and I
But
think
we have to
about
pay
you.
attention, like,
We
right?
have to pay attention. This is like
Yeah.
when you talk to Roger Kamenetz recently about seeing into the life of things. This is, very much about, and if you follow him on social media, he takes photos. He does spend time, right, with various things that we witness. And when we begin to pay attention and slow down, slow down, slow down to take the time to look, we begin to see more deeply. And that meaning, which is already there, begins to come into us. That's how I feel it. It comes into us, and we have that moment of like, oh, this gratitude, really, and just like a deep feeling, a tenderness almost that comes into us when we feel that um, connection, I guess,
And what a
with
blessing!
the meaning.
What a gift! Because I can spend hours or days just like with my nose to the grindstone, taking care of business, cooking dinner, preparing the
Hmm.
show, and all this, and not really feeling anything. And the
Yeah.
dreams bring me back to that feeling moment or seeing some of those sacred objects around my house. And I think what you're saying is kind of a call to have more of that in our lives. And
Yeah.
why not? What
And the
else is?
dreams can help teach us this. I mean, I have a client whose permission I do have to speak about her work in a general way and her ancestry is indigenous and First People, and she had a dream, and the dream was it set up this real dyad. You mentioned the word dyad. It was like it started in this chaos of like an airport where everything was just chaotic and everybody's running to catch their plane, and she stepped outside and she took a few steps towards, and she saw the a mountain, and she saw smoke rising
Huh?
from behind this mountain, just this smoke. And it was like a coming home moment. It was like this instant, like slowing down, almost like you could smell it. Like as she described it, I could smell the smoke, I could see it, I could feel its intention for her. And I
Uh-huh.
could feel its um just a certain reverberation with the energy of that smoke, and what it meant for her as somebody who was adopted into a Catholic, very straight-laced Catholic family, and having all of this ancestry that's sitting in her, and to have that connection, to feel that moment of connection with the land and with the smoke in particular. And so the dreams can help us because those images, so the invitation, of course, was to pause and see the smoke rising above the trees, to feel into that knowledge of that campfire that smoke was coming from, you know.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I'm wondering, do you want to take a moment and read that poem you told us about
Yeah,
before we take a break?
it's a little piece of prose,
Okay.
and let me just find it.
Uh-huh.
Just hopefully it won't take me more than a second to find it here. So I had it up before. Where?
Well, we can get to it
Here
after the
is.
break if you
Okay.
like. We'll have a minute.
I have it here.
Okay, great.
It's 3 paragraphs, and so I'll read it. I've stood now many times in this spot, the spot where everything narrows and I feel the squeeze of time and the curiosity of what is next. The path narrows, the walls of the ravine close in, the sun holds its warmth back from the trod ahead. As always, fear blooms like a moonflower, dark and silky. It takes my hand for that first step. Each successive step takes me further from the safety of what I know until eventually fear hands me off to curiosity and anticipation, those strange bedfellows that have accompanied me my whole life. Most often I am alone in these moments, or I think of myself as alone, but really the landscape of the dream is alive. Let me tell you, I look up. The dry California heat shimmers above along the face of the cliff while shadows dance with me in the crevasse of the ravine. Insects roam, air trails only they can see. A healthy dose of dust kicked up by my feet fills my nose, and the clickety-clack of small rocks bouncing down speaks of the tiny creatures that live there, or perhaps it is the wind as it finds its way into the nooks and crannies. The ocean waves whisper in the distance. I reach the end of the ravine. As it opens to a grassy field, I slow down, breath catching in my throat as I see, just beyond the opening, a large antlered stag. He steps towards me into the opening. I realize that he intends to pass through where I have come. I press my body against the wall. He approaches, and it is like the sky has turned dark as night. He looms so large. His antlers glow, and I notice how sharp they seem, how perfectly formed. I think that I will be impaled by those perfect horns. I will be eviscerated. My blood will spill. Fear raises the flag once again. I hold my breath. All is silent now. He takes one step, nostrils flaring slightly, then two, and he delicately pushes past me, the full length of his body caressing my own. His antlers cause no harm, as no harm he intends. I awaken in the awe and sensuality of the encounter.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that. The fear hands me off to curiosity. Isn't that the way of it?
Yes.
And then
Fear
feel
as
this,
threshold, as a threshold moment, you know?
and then the sensuality of the creature, the stag, brushing right by. Oh,
Yeah, and
powerful.
how can we not understand this being? This being is really wanting to connect with us in that moment, you know, because the connection happens. There's a physical connection that happens.
Right. The
Bodies
touch.
touching.
Bodies touching,
Yeah.
yes. So, Laura, we're going to take a short break. This is Laura Ellen Smith Riva, and you can find her webpage at lauren-smith-riva.com. And we're talking about rewilding the dream, druidism, animism, and dreamwork. You are listening to The Dream Journal, and I am Katherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork. I'd like to send out a warm welcome to our far-flung listeners. We have Santa Cruz, Aptos, Watsonville, Santa Clara, San Jose, Fresno, Whittier, Corona. Hi, Kathy. And then we have Illinois, Georgia, Florida, Pennsylvania, and a couple from Vermont. And we have several Canadians with us today, British Columbia and Quebec. And then we have a listener from Hungary. So glad to have you all streaming live to The Dream Journal. And it is true that people all over the world are interested in their dreams. Help us nudge the algorithm to spread interest in dreaming. Please subscribe to the Dream Journal on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. consider leaving a rating or review and a comment. Or you might consider sharing an episode on one of your social media feeds or emailing it to some of your friends. But really, most importantly, the Dream Journal wants to get you talking to your friends about dreams, because the world needs more dreamers. And maybe people you know in your life that are interested in dreams and you didn't even know. But if you tell them about this podcast, or if you tell them with a dream with you, tell them you just had a dream recently, you might find your next dream sharing buddy. It's all about the dream. So follow the Dream Journal on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and now on YouTube by looking for @Experiential Dreamwork. And next week, tune in for Maddie Murphy, who will be talking about dreamwork and astrology, a perennial favorite topic. I think that's going to be fascinating. So today's guest is Laura Smith Riva, and we are talking about dreamwork and animism, and if we have a little time, we might touch also into dreams and 12-step work. Laura was on the show a couple years ago, and we did an entire show about dreams and the 12 steps and the way she approaches that, and I'll have a link in the episode page for that, but we might get a chance to talk a little bit about that today, depending on what we have for other conversation going on in the show. And Laura's webpage is laura-smith-riva, RIVA.com. So you can find her there at her Archetypal Dreamwork. That used to be one of your brandings, was Archetypal Dreamwork. Does that still work for you, Laura?
Now Natural Dreamwork.
Natural Dreamwork.
I think it's because my email, I just haven't changed my domain from my email. So it still says Laura. It still says dreamer at archetypaldreamwork.com. But.
So that shows up. Okay, that's it. Well, we are composites of our past and all.
Yeah, we evolve, right?
We do.
We evolve the work.
Mm-hmm. And we do.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe we want to go ahead and start. Max here in the studio says he has some. He says he could talk to you all day, I think is the exact phrase I just heard. So this is
Hi, Max.
Hi, Laura.
Yeah, what do you got, Max?
Okay, Laura, you're bringing up some stuff for me that's an old dream that I had a long time ago. I used to live in the town of Yoko in Cameroon when I was in the Peace Corps, and I knew a lot of animists there. One of the guys that gave me a good lot of information on how to assimilate into the place was this guy named Apollinaire. He was associated with the Lutheran Church in some way, but he was really excellent for teaching me about the customs and the beliefs and everything of the people around there. Showed me that animism was very much alive there.
Not to make a joke about animism, that everything's alive.
Yeah, everything was. And so years later I had this dream about that town that I couldn't go, and I thought it was an interpretation that you can't go back, because I dreamt and I wandered around town and nothing was alive anymore. People were soulless, the places were empty, everything was dead there. Wow. And I think that's really just now, instead of like something about you can't go back, I think it's something like something inside me was disconnected from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard dream to have, right? It's painful to feel into the soullessness that you're talking about, or the flatness. But I also feel like the dream is also potentially a call to remember, because when we see what's lacking or what we feel is missing, we also get to then remember what we're longing more for.
Yeah, maybe look for it some other place too.
Yeah.
Here in the present? Maybe
yeah.
Do you have Oh, look for it some other place. I love that.
Yeah.
So anyway, you made me reevaluate what I thought about a very old dream that I had about some time very long ago.
Yeah,
in my
this
life.
idea of not being able to go back. Well, and we don't want to go back to places where we did feel lost or soulless. You were talking about the 12 steps before I was in recovery. Having dreams of what that was like. It's not a place I want to go back to. It's helpful to remember it because it contextualizes how much gratitude I have for where I am now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel lost and soulless when I was there. It was a very big awakening for me.
Exactly. Yeah. And you miss it maybe too, that feeling. Want to find it.
Yeah, I think a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for bringing that out there and letting me reinterpret that dream.
Yeah, bringing back the life, bringing the life, and I like the way you were saying, Laura, that sometimes there's a longing for this, a sense that if this is a part of my life that and it shows up in the dream as dead, that there's life to it because I remember the life and I long for it or something.
Yeah. I mean, it contextualizes in a way. It's that kind of that old saying of like, we can't truly know the light unless we have the dark to lay it up against. So we need to have both. We need to be able to hold both those places. Without pain, we wouldn't really truly feel the depths of joy.
But I don't want to feel my pain.
Of course, we don't. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel fear. We often don't want to feel anger.
No.
All of these feelings that we've pathologized, I guess you could say. But they're important because they contextualize and they're part of our journey. Part of our journey.
Right. And they have information. I mean, that's the thing that, after, I grew up very intellectual and I could just decide what to do. And although it's funny, my siblings probably think of me as very emotional. I didn't think of myself as emotional. So it's there's value. There's tremendous value in my emotions. But sometimes they're overwhelming. Like I can be very high strung and it can be really on edge. And I'm like too much emotion sometimes. But it's better than being dead, right? At least, there's liveness there is what I'm saying. I guess there's life. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking a little bit about, Laura, is, you read your beautiful prose description of that dream, is that I know you're also an artist and you do a lot of painting and your webpage is thick with all these beautiful paintings that you've done of your dream work. And I wonder if you want to say a little bit about the process of creating those paintings.
Sure. It's interesting because I'm a person who as a child always wanted to be creative, but there was a way that through my upbringing, it wasn't valued. You talk about like intellectualism being valued over the artistic or creative nature, or, rational versus, the more creative. So I did not have an experience of exploring that part of myself much as a child. And so I actually had a dream about it. A dream where I was painting, and there was a woman who actually was a shamanic practitioner that I knew from many years ago in Vermont. Her name is Julie Soke. She was a wonderful teacher for me at the time. And she came to me in my dream and she was teaching me not how to paint, but how to be compassionate with myself in the process of painting and how mistakes could become, I guess, what is it? I don't remember the famous artist there who always said the happy accident, that when you make a mistake that like, it's okay. We were working with oil paints in the dream and you could just move those paints around.
They take a long time to harden. I guess
they take a long time to dry. So I started painting with oil paints. My Dreamwork practitioner at the time encouraged me to do so, and I did. And yes, there were many, many paintings. And so the process often starts with an image. I have not painted the stag yet.
Oh.
But I actually had it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say you kind of painted it with your words. I mean, because it was very vivid.
Exactly.
Vivid.
Well, this is why, the poets understand about imagery, right? And about how to create this sense of imagery that brings life into the image through words. And so it is another form of, animating a concept, if you will, but bringing life into us through imagination.
I love that word. It keeps coming around. Anima, animus, animating, animism.
Animism, yeah. Life. Life. Aliveness maybe is a better word.
So, Laura, we have a caller on the air.
Okay, sure.
I want to say hello to Ellen. Are you Ellen from Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Hi, Ellen.
I'm sorry. I try to wait so other people can call in.
Thanks for calling. No worries, and thanks for waiting. You're here with Laura and me.
My thing is a really bizarre tiny little segment dream that happened, but I'm sharing it because it was amazing to me how quickly we incorporate what's going on in our environment instantly in the dreams. Like, I couldn't believe it. So I fell asleep, and I had been, it's not, I used to never do this, but yeah, I was watching TV and I was tired and I fell asleep.
Okay.
And suddenly I have this dream. It's just a split little scene where I'm pushing a little stroller, and I guess there's a baby in the stroller, and the stroller I tip it over because whatever, there is some bushes, and past the bushes is a steep decline.
A deep what? Sorry?
Decline.
Oh, decline.
So so I think it was starting to roll under the bushes, and I could see that it was like, oh my God, this would be like deadness for this child, right?
Right.
So I tipped so this happened so instantaneously. I tipped the stroller over so it won't roll, so it's not on its wheels. So now the child's on its side. And there are two women there with me in the dream, and they won't stop talking. So you can imagine what that is. But in the dream, we're paralyzed, right? So I'm in the dream. I feel like I'm kind of on the ground with the child, like maybe I tipped myself over or something with the stroller. And I'm trying to yell at these women, like, this is an emergency. Stop talking. and because it's a dream, I'm paralyzed. So it was almost like a nightmare. I'm like, stop talking. And no voice will come out of me. And I'm just working so hard to tell them, help, stop talking. Like, look at what's happening right here. Oh, wow. And they won't stop talking.
Wow. So
then all of a sudden, I wake up, and I was like, and there's the two women on the TV having dialogue, like, and I was like,
they're talking and talking.
I could, in an instant, I incorporated like wanting that voices to stop so I could sleep probably without these voices, and created this crazy little scene, an instantaneous moment, and I'm like, and I've seen that happen before, and I'm just like. It perplexes me. I made a whole little scene about wanting myself to wake up and turn off the TV.
Oh, interesting. What do you think, Laura? Do you want to have any reflections on that?
I mean, sure. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing the dream. And it is so fascinating how our mind can, in an instant, call up an entire scene. The mind is an amazing thing, and you're also right that it will take the things that are happening in the outer world and it will incorporate them. Often they do it in my mind, this is the animism of the dream itself. Like the dream is alive in a way, because there's at least in my opinion, there's an intention behind the talking women. They're on the TV, but they also show up in the dream. They show up in the dream for a reason, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And so, as far as the dream goes, we're not so much in the business of interpreting the dreams, but, really understanding and feeling into what you felt in the dream, which sounded like panic, a desire to be seen and heard, and feeling not seen or heard. And also, very interestingly to me, is the place of feeling the carriage tipped over, but actually feeling it from the point of view of the child. It seemed like you said, maybe I went down too with the carriage. We could wonder, and maybe even ask, like, what's it like to be the child in the carriage, and the women talking, and they're not hearing you, or they're not seeing you, and is that familiar to you in some way? And there's a lot of places we could go with that, but that's certainly those feelings.
Yeah. What's coming up for you, Ellen?
I just want to stop and say that's amazing, because I just saw it as like, I just wanted to get myself awake to turn the TV off. And how interesting that I created this little scenario. And it was so weird and scary because of that paralyzation. I've had that happen in dreams before where right, I'm trying to scream out, and nobody's hearing me, and because you are paralyzed in a dream, because no matter how hard I tried to scream, I couldn't scream because I'm in a dream.
Right.
But wanting to try to scream is what woke me up, because it's like I'm so intense. I wanted them to see, like, wow, this child is in this, could be mortally injured if we, so please come and help at this moment.
Right.
Stop talking. Why are you talking and not paying attention?
And that part was not part of the TV. That was not part of the sound that you were listening to, the baby in the stroller falling over. That was not part of the thing that was on the TV.
No, that was me having some reason to be yelling at these women to stop talking, I guess.
Well, it's interesting that it picked the dream maker, whatever that means to you.
But now you're creating so much more ways I can go deep with it that I'm like, wow. Okay. So keep going.
Well, there's layers. We think of the dreams often as being layered, or I do anyway. So one layer could very much be about, like, I need to wake myself up so I can get in the bed and sleep. And another layer, a little bit deeper, there's maybe something else, and you go a little bit deeper, you maybe hit something that really has, resonates for you in terms of some issue that you're working on in your life, or some longing that we might have, or something that needs our attention, and some lost part of ourself.
That sense of being in the tipped over stroller, I think, is very poignant. Yeah. That's a very beautiful and kind of painful moment.
And the interesting thing is that was me instantly going, how do I stop this baby from going under those bushes and down the decline where it would
wanting
die,
to protect
right? So
the child.
I got to save this child, so tipping it over was a way of saving it.
And then I could even ask, what if I just let the child go down the incline? That's like a whole different way of exploring the dream.
Oh, right.
What is so dangerous about that? I mean, was there rocks there? Maybe I don't like to go down. I don't know. There's
the thing is that I did also tip over, because I looked under the bushes and saw that.
So I tipped over too.
Well, I saw that it was a decline, and that I had to stop the stroller from rolling under it, or the baby from falling out or something.
Well, Ellen, thank you. This is beautiful, and hopefully you have some more ways to think about this dream now.
I appreciate it. It's so funny, because I want to share with your guests that when it's Friday evening, I try to program myself to remember a dream.
Just for the show.
I want to listen to the dream journal and have something to call it.
Well, I always appreciate your dream sharing. Thank you, Ellen.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. Bye now.
Thank you.
So we're near the end of the show, Laura. Do you have any, we haven't really touched on the 12 steps at all, but I will put a link to the other show where we talked a lot about that, and maybe we can have you come back or something. But is there any last few minutes that you want to talk about, or you want to share with our listeners?
Well, if you're interested in working with your dreams, feel free to reach out to me. And, I have a free 30-minute introductory session you can book on my website, and we can see if it might be something you would want to explore. Happy to have those conversations with folks. And, our Natural Dreamwork community is working on some course offerings, which we hope to offer to the public soon. So you can stay tuned for that. If you want to sign up for my newsletter to find out about those things, I do have a link on my website for that as well. And I would just say, if you're interested in this, you had mentioned at the break, Katherine, about how did I get into this? And I think of the concept of animism, druidism, Dreamwork.
Yep.
And, I really was drawn towards indigenous practices always my whole life. But I did not want to culturally appropriate. And so I was drawn towards Druidism because my ancestry comes from, Northern European English lines. And my good friend, Mary Kay Casper, was involved with the Druid school. She had been involved with the Druids up in Maine and had gotten involved with the Druids in Vermont. And so that's really what drew me towards it. It turned out to be a 5-year program for me because COVID happened in the middle of it. But it was some amazing work we did. And that school is still going if folks are interested in an animistic practice,
and that's
spiritual
the
practices.
Green Mountain School of Druidry.
It's called the Green Mountain Druid School. The Green Mountain Druid School, the Green Mountain Druid Order. If you Google those, you'll find them. But amazing work. And if you want to connect to the natural world through an animistic approach that isn't culturally appropriative of indigenous peoples, in my opinion. If you have ancestry from Northern European ancestry and ancestry from the Isles,
It's good to think about.
you qualify.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, and so that's Laura-Smith-Riva.com. And any just like last encouragement?
Follow your dreams, attend to them, consort with them. They really do have some wisdom for you, and they really want to help us repair not only our imaginations, but our intuition. And without imagination, we can't believe, or we can't understand what's possible. We have to first imagine it. And dreams help us with our imagination.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Laura. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to be with you again here on the Dream Journal, Katherine. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, take care, and we'll talk soon, huh?
Okay. Sounds good.
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. I am Katherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at katherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE@ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and also YouTube. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer and music creator, audio editing by Suki Wessling, phones by Eric Nelson. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
There's a